if you haven't been living under a rock, there's been a very hot and heavy conversation. So we just thought that now let's drop everything and let's just come here and have a nice discussion and conversation about it. So yeah,
Yeah, it's
I
been
think we
crazy. I
can we can
think
just
it was Sunday, ne? Super Sunday, probably the biggest match in the
hmm
Premier League for the past 5 years. Manchester City versus Liverpool at the Etihad Stadium.
Yep,
Congratulations, Liverpool,
definitely.
on your win. We'll have a chat about that game in our Premier League show. But for now, hey, a certain interesting man named Jamie Carragher had an interesting statement about the Ballon d'Or conversation and competitions that affect where this prestigious trophy lands in terms of the players, bro. And ish, I can't necessarily say it was a snub because he didn't outright say it, but you could see body language, you could see with the demeanor when that competition when the AFCON was mentioned as a major competition by Micah Richards and Daniel Sturridge. Surprisingly, even Roy Keane was like, "Hey, man, this guy's really he's really really doing it now."
Like, you do your job. Just stop talking. Do your job. Just do your job. You know? No. What did you take? What was your take on that whole like as you were seeing it, just be as it was bubbling up and just everything that's happened so far? What's been your take?
Ish. Like Ian Wright said back in 2021, bro. Like I think it's some sort of Eurocentric or British view on the fact that they invented the sport. You know, whatever comes, the product football, the best of the product football only comes from Europe and Britain, which has clouded a lot of people for the past, I think, ever since I've been alive. Really, it's been a general consensus that European football is the top tier of club football and international football,
Yeah.
even though Brazil and Argentina are in amongst some of the best national teams. But over the years, bro, like African football has seen major developments. We've produced some of the best players even in the previous eras, but now it's more imminent, it's more like prominent with Mohamed Salah doing crazy numbers, Sadio Mane, Victor Osimhen, one of the best strikers in the world, and a whole lot more, Victor Boniface and all the others. When
Yeah.
his reaction when Micah said AFCON is a major tournament, I was like, really? Really? Like, are you trying to downplay like what we just saw in AFCON 2024? Like the best international tournament amongst Euros and the Copa America last season?
100%. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that's not a crazy statement for me to say that the AFCON was better than those tournaments
Not even.
last year.
Not even close.
From
Yeah. Not even
officiating,
close.
entertainment of the games, and the final. I think we had the best final i- amongst the three competitions. I don't know about you. What were your thoughts when you saw it, bro?
Yeah. Uh, uh, is it a color thing? Is it a color thing?
Kind of thing.
Is it a color thing? No, honestly, like I think is it a color thing? No, for me, I think when I watched it, it was very much as Ian Wright said. I like the fact that you touched on that video, which is like 4 years ago. It's like
Yeah,
touched on 4 years ago, but it seems like it's aged so greatly now to the point where you wouldn't even think you would have thought that he recorded it yesterday. The way
yeah,
that it's so relevant and so poignant, but. I think just to touch on the video itself and how he kind of just dismissed it, him acting that way is kind of just the demeanor of just like what they view African football. That's genuinely what they view it as. And you can see now, I think this morning he kind of sent a few tweets trying to backtrack or trying to cover his ass because he sees that he's in hot water. But
yeah.
if
Excuse the
anything, he made it
language, but
worse
yeah,
because exactly.
yeah,
Sorry. But I think again, what is interesting is the fact that Vele they don't perceive because even as far back when Jurgen Klopp used to be manager, and the way that they used to talk about African competition, the AFCON, it was seen as more of like a hindrance.
yeah,
Like the fact that it's in the middle of the season, like my best players are leaving to the point where you have to ask like what's this? Are the players, do they have to go and all these types of stuff? You don't see these kind of questions with European football, with the Copa
Facts.
America. But again, I think this is just a bigger issue when it comes to African football and how it's perceived. And I think in the English media and just in the overall perception of European football, African football is really just seen as, just as a byproduct, or it's just, it's just there. They're just going to play, they just go there, which is unfortunately like, it is tinged with racism. Definitely. I
Yeah,
think
it is.
whether you can say it is intentional or not or
Nah.
overtones, but it's there. It's very much there. And I think it's disappointing from that regard because even the way that he kind of just like, "Ugh, seriously?
Seriously, yeah.
Seriously? Like he meant that. He meant that. He really meant that.
Yeah.
Like I can applaud Micah Richards and Daniel Sturridge. Wow, the fact that those are the two people having to really be the voices of reason in the room. You
Yeah.
must you must be saying something wrong if those are the two.
Facts.
And they're having to say that, what, but the AFCON is still there. Like the AFCON is still there. Both English players who have no affiliation with Africa whatsoever,
Yeah.
but just because they understand that no, for African players, that people, what's this? Like I think players like Drogba, players like Yaya Toure, players like Samuel Eto'o, they would have died to win an AFCON, and they
Bro.
managed to do it for themselves. Yaya Toure managed, so just to show that this is not just a bygone thing that kind
Nah,
of
nah, nah.
yeah, like it means something to them. So I think again, in the grander scheme of things, when you look at the Euros, Copa America, and the AFCON the past 18 months, AFCON was by far the best competition, best in every way, every metric. It really
Facts.
just like exceeded all expectations. And, now for this whole conversation, if anything, it's kind of invigorated, African football more
Facts.
and more to the point where people are just saying that, what, if anything, I want to watch the AFCON.
Yeah,
I'm just like, nah,
major,
bro, what these people
major,
are saying, nah,
major,
bro.
major.
You know? If anything, African countries are just saying, what, screw these guys. I'm
Right.
excited for the AFCON. Like I'm
Yeah.
literally looking forward to my tournament, my competition. You know what
Watching
I
my
mean?
country.
So
Yeah.
precisely, precisely. So yeah, man, I think overall, I think Jamie Carragher kind of just he definitely missed the mark and kind of just showed the 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 consensus of what everyone kind of thinks of African football plainly and simply. And the fact that it was on live television, you can't really
Bro.
hide there. I see they removed it from the replay on YouTube, the Sky Sports YouTube channel,
Yeah.
but it's already there. It's
It's
already
already
gotten, I
there.
think, more
That's
than
the beauty
50
of the
million.
internet, dog.
Yeah,
You
that's
can't get
true.
away with stuff like this.
That is,
A lot.
that's true.
In a crazy sense, like we do take some positives because the PR is going crazy. The PR is going
Yeah,
online have took this chance and be like, yo, this is major. Drogba, better than
this is,
Jamie
yeah,
Carragher. Mohamed El Neni, he's played a couple of finals. Mohamed Salah, Samuel Eto'o, Yaya Toure. People regard this guy as one of the best in the Premier League. Riyad Mahrez.
true.
Like a lot of African greats have given a lot to European football and especially in the Premier League. Right now, the best player in the Premier League is an African player and he's Egyptian.
Yes.
He
Mm.
shouldn't be sidelined just because his nation plays in Africa and his nation doesn't quote unquote have a chance at the major tournaments. But
It's like, sorry, I wanted to ask, what's this Carragher, his
yeah,
argument that he tried to make in his tweets when he was
yeah,
backtracking about how, some money would have to work twice as hard. What's your take on his argument? Because I don't see it because I think I remember
hey,
Kylian Mbappe won the World Cup at 19, but he only finished fourth. So in any case, him trying to say World Cup and European thingy, I don't know. What's your take on that whole conversation? Or his argument rather?
I think the Champions League season near 2020 to 2021 should tell you everything. Jorginho and Kante were top five footballers in the world that season, right? According to the Ballon d'Or
Mm.
rankings in
Yeah.
2021. Jorginho is the one who
Mm.
won his national team competition. He also won the Champions League. In the league, not so much, not so great. I think they finished in the top four, right? Chelsea,
Yeah,
that's
finished third. They finished third. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
they finished third. So at club level, besides the Champions League, he didn't perform quite well. So he didn't have an all-round body of work to look at club level. International performance was one of the
Yeah.
best players, pivotal player. Kante, on the other hand, he only had the Champions League to look back at. Because at the Euros,
Mm,
him and Pogba weren't really so strong in the midfield. It wasn't the midfield that we saw dominate in the 2018 World Cup in Russia. So he didn't have a great
true.
Euros and he didn't have a great like club season, only in the Champions League. Let's take it back
Yeah.
to 2022. Sadio Mane, one of the best players in the Prem that season, the best left winger in the Prem that season, finished second,
100%.
point behind Man City. Challenge for the Champions League, went to the final, was the best player, even though I think Edouard Mendy was the MVP of the AFCON, but he was given the best player at the AFCON. So
Yeah. Yeah.
across all boards, Sadio Mane was like a top player, club level and at
Don't
international level.
forget, I think also the just in terms of to add on in sense of like he also took his country to a World Cup.
Yeah,
That should be noted as well.
he
Yeah.
also his his
So in terms of
his country also
his
qualified.
African country,
Yeah,
yeah,
his
yeah, his
African
African
country
country, yeah, yeah.
made it to a
Mm,
World Cup. So
mm.
Sadio Mane had a stellar club season and a stellar international season. Karim Benzema edged it only because he won the Champions League final against Sadio Mane's team, and he was the best player in
Yeah,
that tournament. Sadio Mane, and he was also the best player in his league. So Benzema was the best player in his league, best player in the Champions League, but not the best player at international level. Sadio Mane was top three best players on all fronts, but he was never the best in any of the tournaments. That's hence he finished second behind Karim Benzema.
okay,
So Carragher
yeah,
saying that the AFCON doesn't hold weight is kind of crazy because the AFCON is what propelled Sadio Mane into a podium place, which it doesn't make sense though.
true.
I don't know about you, it does not make sense at all.
It it does make sense. I think the argument kind of falls apart completely when again you look at how exactly the example that you made of Sadio Mane, the fact that in most cases, genuinely, he probably wouldn't have been put in that position. He would have probably finished very high
Yeah,
in the rankings, but
top 10
second, I
definitely.
mean, when was like, but for him to finish second, like in most cases, he wouldn't have really been in that position. But because of what he was able to do in the AFCON, that
Yeah,
kind of just shows you the weighting that it has. But I can also agree the fact that Vele Vele AFCON, even like for example, in terms of just like TV rights, for example, the fact that it's not really like when it comes to like how it's being like distributed, how it's being consumed by the outside world of football,
yeah,
it's not the same as the Euro. It's not the same. I think Copa America is to a lesser extent as well, but you
yeah,
can tell that Vele Vele African football has always had to have like, has always had that disadvantage in the fact that because no one really takes it that seriously. That's why the likes of Carragher kind of, don't take it that seriously because they don't even watch it, I would imagine. I'm sure
yeah.
they've never even watched an AFCON. I wouldn't even be surprised if Jamie Carragher has never watched a single
Same,
AFCON game before because
same.
that in itself is kind of the biggest problem. And I think if we were to get to a point where the AFCON is being like, distributed in the same level, maybe obviously not to the same level as European football, because we know that's a whole different beast in itself, but at
Yeah,
least pushed to at least a similar level in the sense of just saying that, whether it's distributed to Sky or BN or BT or any of these other places, just in the sense of just like, this is also a major tournament. Like, and it's for that reason alone, I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, what's really stopping them? Unless really they're just like, ah, really, it's mid season, it's in January. So I think again that stigma, that bias around it, that little bubble, because
yeah,
I can understand if people will say it's boring and stuff. Yes, previous tournaments, way back when it wasn't the most entertaining all the time, but
yeah,
I mean it's really improved in levels. And I think again the names that you mentioned, the likes of Riyad Mahrez, who won the competition two tournaments ago, the
yeah,
likes of Samuel Eto'o, the likes of what's this, Yaya Toure, and so on. These are like African greats, Premier League greats, like European in terms of just like what they were able to do in Europe.
yeah,
Like, they've edged themselves, but they always made sure that, they were there for the AFCON. They never decided that, ah, I'm not feeling it. Because
yeah,
again, there's no greater honor. than representing your country
Facts.
on the biggest stage. And if it's not going to be the World Cup, it's your continental competition.
Yeah,
So I think again, this has really highlighted something that probably has been bubbling undertones that get spoken here and there. But I think for the fact that it was opened so widely by such a public figure, it's obviously gonna continue the conversation to the point where, you know, we're gonna need to start putting some respect on African football.
facts.
And I think
So
again, for the fact that true. No, go ahead, yeah.
I have some numbers here. The commercial insights from the previous AFCON, and
Okay.
we had a 65% increase in the total number of TV partners from 68 to 110 in the previous
Wow.
tournament. A 90%
Okay.
increase in content streaming on OTT from AFCON 2021. We had 41 FTA broadcasters in 171 territories, which is plus
Yeah.
40% increase in the FIFA audience from AFCON 2021. And they tapped into 13 new markets. Brazil in South America, clearly they enjoyed it, 22 million.
Mm.
And Italy, surprisingly, Italy also 22 million.
We
22
know how
million.
they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So this thing that this is a dead tournament is a tournament that should be chuffed aside. It doesn't hold the same weighting as the Euros and the Copa America. Sure, the quality, we can never chat about the quality. It's subjective, but we can all see that South America and Europe obviously produce the best players in the world. But if we look all around as a tournament, the style of play, the different styles of play in both tournaments, the different like just the intrigue of watching an AFCON game, the fact that you don't know which team is gonna win. There's no
You don't
favorite
know what to
in the
expect. You
tournament.
don't know. There's no favorites. There's no like anything can happen. Like
Yeah,
literally, that's what I'm saying again. Like, that in itself, like African football is just not given a chance. I think
sure.
again, just the systemic racism that exists within the media itself kind of just like leaves you at an undertone where you have to work just twice as hard just to give the same amount of respect.
Yeah,
And I think that's the sad reality of the matter. But I think now, if anything, this kind of will just give that invigorating. I hope, because I think what AFCON is still quite a while away. I
yeah,
think probably like 11 months away. So I'm just hoping that by the time we get there, you know, everyone has banded together and it's just really it becomes this huge thing that becomes so undeniable that even the likes of Jamie Carragher have to just raise up their hands. And we don't even need his validation or
yeah. No,
anything
no,
from
no,
him. But
not
I
at
think
all.
again, just no, but I think again, just to for African foot, just for African football to say that, you know what, we are important.
Yeah,
Literally, one of your European finals had an African score a hat trick. Dunk on you,
yeah,
boom, there you go. Thank you very much. You have probably the most informed player and the best player in the world right now, being an
yeah,
African, and again vying for the Ballon d'Or. And I think again, if Salah were to win the AFCON, that would be a hook, line, sinker. That would just be I ain't got nothing else to
sure.
say.
But I
You know
think
what I mean? I don't know.
by that time the Ballon d'Or would be announced because it's usually October.
Oh yeah, yeah, yes,
Yeah.
yeah. It's October. Sorry, yeah, yeah.
So I think maybe FIFA
But
then
in any
will
case,
be there.
mm,
Yeah. But just just just
okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
just
True,
before we close this
true.
this discussion and all the Jamie Carragher, England came here to South
Yeah.
Africa, which is one of the best places in Africa. Sorry to tout my own horn, but England, they were here. They were here. They experienced the conditions, and it wasn't nice. It wasn't nice for them. They got drubbing.
Mm, mm.
They failed they scraped through, barely scraped through to the second round at the World Cup in South Africa. Yeah. Well, Lampard, they know
True.
exactly what it feels like. The GOAT Messi, he came
Mm.
here, he left with 0 goals. That should tell you how tough it is
Nothing
to play in South Africa, in Africa, dog. So I'd love to
in
see them
Africa.
come
Nah,
here.
no,
I'd love to see them come here, play in the conditions, 36 degrees, scorching heat at
no
high
clouds.
altitude, dog.
No, no. Literally, you
Sure,
only have a water break. That's the only thing between you and a stroke. Like
sure,
literally, just to show you that those conditions, like it's not child's play. It really.
sure,
I know that even South America, you have places like Bolivia with the high
sure.
altitude. But again, I'm just saying that Vela, these. these types of conditions where like it's not just anything. Like try
So,
and come here and play here. You're not gonna like it. You're gonna struggle. It's not there's no fancy, what's this heated pitches that
uh,
can, like remove steam or anything. Nah, bro.
mm-mm.
Like,
Natural grass. Let's go and play. Well, football at its purest, dog.
literally
Yeah.
at its purest form. Yeah, literally. So,
But
um,
anyways, dog, like
yeah, man.
if
hmm
we digress
hmm
from that, if we look at the Ballon d'Or chat as a whole, Vele, I think Mo Salah is in
All
the
right.
Rafinha, Kylian Mbappe is obviously there. And I think with an outsider's chance, I'd love to just, Jay, I see you wearing a Paris Saint-Germain shirt there. Usman Dembele, dog. I think if PSG can do something, he will be in that conversation. I don't know about you. Who are your candidates at this point in time?
At this point in time, I think we're recording this in February, and the season will be concluded in May. I think it would be nice for us to have this conversation again in May
Yeah,
once everything is said and done. But as for right now, when we look back, I think right now Mohamed Salah has to be definitely up there. I think his form, he's doing like what Messi and Ronaldo used to do in
yeah,
La Liga when we used to watch La Liga like
bruh,
week in week out. This is something that they used to do all the time. He's doing that in the Premier League in terms of goals, assists every game. He's breaking all of his own records. So I'd say for
fact.
him, he's definitely up there. Dependent on how they do, it seems like the Premier League is like definitely something that is in their hands. Champions League is a different conversation. I
Yeah,
think if we're looking at champs and we see a team like Barca, I think Rafinha, again, you can't deny the season that he's had, the impact that he's had. I think he's kind of dwindled a bit now,
yeah,
post over the, in the new year. But I think again, his numbers are still there and there's still a lot of football to be played until the end of the season. La Liga could go to the last day. So that could also be something to look at. I think Ousmane Dembele, for him, he's going to have a harder time because he plays in League One, and League One is not really the biggest parameter to see the talent. I think Champions League will probably be the biggest what's this parameter that you could probably like need in terms of really staking his claim up
yeah.
there. I don't know. I think those candidates that you kind of mentioned, I would have loved to have said Vinny, but
Not this,
10 times more has not really, it's not really been,
not this season, not
it's not
this.
really been working.
I think we just have to
He
accept that Vinny is the type of player who's gonna start performing from February till the end of the season. At this point, bro.
I mean, if he can put up performance that he did last year, if by quarterfinals he starts banging in those important goals in La Liga, he starts
Yeah,
showing up in the big games.
yeah,
Who's to say? Who is to say? I would love for him to drop a hat trick at the Wanda Metropolitano, just to say, you know what, this
yeah.
is my house. This is my house.
But I
Just
think,
like a little dancey dance or something.
but I think that's a different chat because if Mbappe is also there, playing a pivotal role, seeing that he got
Yes,
over
yeah.
his, he got over his hump earlier, so he has been consistent for longer. That would
Mm.
edge it. And
Yes,
also another
yeah.
thing,
Fair,
the
fair, fair.
Club World Cup, dog. Liverpool and Barcelona won't be there, and this is probably the biggest competition of the season. Don't you think it will also have a major impact?
I think obviously we'll have to see how the competition how it's gonna pan out because obviously
Yeah,
this is the first iteration in this form. So
yeah,
obviously we will see because obviously new competitions we don't really know how it's going to be weighted in terms of like its significance because you remember how when the Nations League came into being we didn't know what that was going to be like and
yeah.
since then it hasn't really lived up in terms of being that secondary competition in that sense but what I can say is it's going to be very telling to see. I think if Madrid are able to get that on their notch as well, I mean that's also another what's this notch that Mbappe could possibly have in terms of staking his claim because I would say he's also looking at that golden ball.
Yeah,
He's looking at all the hullabaloo that was happening for Vinny and saying, "I want to be a part of that mess. I want to
yeah,
be a part of that discussion." So I think that's kind of why he's had to like pick up his socks, and I think yeah, that's going to be very telling, especially with Liverpool and Barca not being there. Yeah, no, I think it's gonna be one of the more unpredictable Ballon d'Or seasons, which
facts.
I think is great. Because I think it going down to two people kind of leaves it a bit boring. But if it's like four or five people
Yeah,
at least, or something in that, in terms of people staking serious claims, I mean, that in itself is something to definitely look at. So we'll just have to see how it pans out
definitely.
in 4 months' time.
Definitely.
But yeah, yeah. But
Uh,
I think from you and
yeah, we
I,
can just sign off now,
so
bro.
I think we can just sign off. Let us know what you guys think of this whole discussion. I know that this is a discussion that has had a lot of people burning their tongue, so please let us know what you think. Our socials are going to be put right down below. Please subscribe, please share, like, follow, all these nice things. And yeah, from you and I, we'll be there for all football updates, all things football related. We'll be there. Yeah, from you and I, no foul play. Stay tuned in.
Danko.